All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Sonia Miller here with Andrea Horvath, my wonderful co host. Welcome to the Career Doctors, where we share conversations to cure your work life. We are so happy to be here with you on LinkedIn Live. And this series is perfect for you if you're unhappy with your work life, career, or business, whatever that may be, and you don't believe it can be different. If you'd like to transition your work in some capacity and you just don't know what that next step would be, what that next career or business would be, and where to begin. If you are making or have been making great sacrifices, working really hard, putting in the time, and no matter what you do, it seems like you're never quite arriving, it's not paying off. And perhaps you've been settling for less simply because you don't know what the alternative is. You keep doing what you think you're supposed to be doing. It isn't paying off. You're settling for less. You keep seeking, hustling, grinding. Maybe you even feel like the eternal hunter. And you feel like you're stuck with what you've got because it's not working, but you don't know the alternative. So if any of this kind of work-life discontent resonates for you, you're in the right place, and we are really happy to be here with you and offer support. We're very passionate about this subject matter because not only do you personally benefit, but as you are fulfilled in your work life, you become a ripple in your unique sphere of influence, and that's how we elevate our world. So in this live today, our topic is wrap up 2023 with peace, power, and possibilities. And so we're here to inspire you above all else to really make time for yourself, to intentionally wrap up this year so that you feel empowered to start 2024 from this incredibly empowered place, again, of new possibilities. And so our main intention today is that we're going to explain why this process of being intentional with your wrap up is so important, what to do, exactly what is required to do this wrap up, and then how to do it. So we're so excited. Andrea and I have been talking about this for a number of conversations now. And we are here to explore how to be of service. So we would love to hear from you. And let's just start with this topic. We invite you to put in the chat on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, how empowered do you feel as you're wrapping up this year, or even just considering the new year on the horizon? How empowered do you feel about your work life as you begin 2024? 10 is, I am on fire. It's go time. I can't wait for, the doors to open again and everyone to come back online. And of course, one would be like, oh my gosh, I'm lost. This stinks. I really need some help, and anything in between. So put in the chat. We'd love to hear where you're at. This always helps us kind of connect with who's here. And please post your questions in the chat, whether right now or as some ahas come, share your takeaways, the light bulb moments. We can speak to that more. It helps us to help you because that's what we heard. That's why we're here. Also, if you'd like to take the conversation deeper and continue the conversation, we have a Telegram group, and we'll be including those links throughout all of our posts. So check the chat, the comments, either during the show or after the show, and we'd be happy to let you in and connect with our growing community of people who are really committed to having the best work life possible, because after all, this is where we spend most of our waking time. So it needs to be fulfilling. That's what we're here to say. All right. Well, with that, I'm going to introduce myself if you don't know me. My name is Sonia Miller. I'm an empowerment coach for professional women who feel that they're meant for more. And I help my clients shift from settling to being sought after so that they can finally have the acknowledgement, the promotions, and the opportunities that they've longed for. And here's the key: without wasting time or working harder. And the way that I do this after almost 30 years of working with women around the world is I have seen the common denominators and created a really simple distilled program. It's a 90-day program. And really what it does is it spotlights the opportunities that you miss when you're operating more as a human doing versus a human being. And most of us have been conditioned to work as human doings We know that hard work works. It absolutely does. It absolutely produces results. But if that's your only skill set and you don't know how to tap into the being skill set, which by the way is so much easier than hard work, that is the cause of your upper limits because you're really missing a whole aspect of your power. So this 90-day program helps people to really learn how to receive more of what they want by actually doing less. And it just opens up the flow of, all of the things that have been eluding you because you just didn't have that missing skill. So that's what I bring, is what all of my clients over 30 years have taught me. And I love to just keep passing it forward so that you can tap into that for your own life and especially your work life. So Andrea, how about you? Introduce yourself.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, Sonia. First of all, I want to acknowledge, so Brian commented with an 8, and you said you were not there at the beginning of the year. So Brian, I'm actually curious if you were willing to throw a comment in and what you think helped shift you. That would be really interesting. And I'd be curious to know what you think really shifted this year. So if you're willing to share that, we would love to hear it. And any aha moments if you have also, please do share. It does help us to know. Well, first of all, it's great to declare your aha moments because it actually like reinforces it and grounds it and actually helps you embody it more. So it's helpful for you, but it's also helpful for us. So we know exactly, like Sonia said, where you're at. So for those who don't know me, my name is Andrea Horvath, and I help ambitious women figure out which career or business has their name written all over it. I'm actually starting to call this your soul aligned work because it really is the work you came here to do. What lights your soul and heart up? Like what, so many of us go through life and we feel like there's something we're meant to do, like there's something we're meant to step into. That's how it was for me for many, many years. I used to be a CPA. And I spent the time and the energy and investment in myself to figure out, well, how do you actually figure out what that is? Like, if you know there's something there that's just like this niggling, how do you actually know? And what I discovered through that process is there's a number of pieces. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You've got all this data about yourself. And so what I've figured out is actually how you put all those pieces together. Because here's the thing, you've got all of it inside of you already. And, to sort of talk about what Sonia talks about, it's not about doing more. It's actually not. Like for what I do, it's about actually taking what's already there. So it isn't actually about doing more either, but it's a different perspective of looking at it. And what I've created is a framework, and the framework is called the Career Fulfillment Blueprint. And what I work with women is finding, like, pulling out all those pieces, figuring out what piece here is important, what piece here is important, creating that vision, and then helping them make that transition, which I'm super passionate about because, like I said, I used to be a CPA on paper. I was super successful. It all looked great. However, on the inside, it felt a lot different. And I know a lot of you are in that same place where you just know you're not in the right place. So I'm super excited to be here as well. So today's live. Okay, so Sonia and I have created a format that we seem to be using for all our lives now. And it's going to be 3 keys, first of all, to start off. And so the 3 keys today are really going to be about you claiming freedom from the past, really, claiming your power, and then claiming possibilities for the new year. And we're going to, again, what Sonia said, we want to teach you, like, why is this important to do this work? Because it really, and you'll see, I think, as we go through this, you'll see why it's important, but why each step that in particular we're talking about is important to help you move forward. And then Sonia's going to be sharing some brilliant awareness exercises. And I really want to stress these are important to do. What they really are open-ended questions. And what happens is when you ask yourself open-ended questions, you open yourself up to possibility. And that's when we start to actually create change that feels good, that feels in alignment. So just be curious. This is what it's all about. Those awareness exercises is just that willingness to be open and to be curious. And then, of course, we're going to give you some aligned action. So any questions before we dive in? Otherwise, I will start with the first key right off the bat. All right. So this is really about claiming your past. And so a lot of people, and this is what we have happening in our society, is we don't like to look at the past because we often only see the bad things. Okay. And that's a habit we've gotten through in a society, right? And what we end up doing is we don't ever look at the past because we don't want to look at the bad things. However, we miss a lot of the gold. Okay. And what we're talking about today is actually going back in the past, looking back on the last year, but not actually going through it from a place of judgment, which we've been taught as a society, really, in many, many ways, to judge our mistakes, our perceived mistakes, to judge our failures. When in actual fact, as a human being, we're not meant to be perfect. Like it's not who we are. We're actually on this earth to learn. We're here to grow. We're here to expand. And so what we'd encourage you to do is look back on your year that you went through, but do it from a place of neutrality. Again, curiosity, just going, okay, what worked for me this year? What were some things that I did that maybe didn't go so well? And it's really just about going, oh, okay, well, I might want to do less of that next year, and just being able to release it and let it go. But here's the thing, we have to see it and acknowledge it. What happens though is so often we judge ourselves for things that have happened over the past year. And actually, what judging yourself does, it actually keeps you stuck. It's like being on a dead end street, like you're not going anywhere. And so looking back on the past year with the utmost of grace and compassion. This is a practice. And if you've been somebody who's spent a lot of your life like beating yourself up for everything you've done wrong, it takes time. It takes actual time to incorporate grace and compassion and to look at yourself and reflect on what's happened and have that grace and compassion. And it does take a practice. I started this years ago. It's something I work on very closely with clients, and it comes up over and over and over again. Because if you think about it, if you've been judging yourself for years, say you've been doing it for 40 years, we can't expect, in one day or an hour to actually move past that. But remember, if we can go back and look at some of the mistakes, you can look at, okay, well, what did I learn from that? Like maybe there was a case where you tried to fit in and you went against your core values and you felt kind of gross afterwards. Okay, well, that's good information. That's information. Your core values are really important. Okay, cool. So taking the wisdom from it and gleaning that wisdom, that's really important when we look at our past, because those lessons you can carry forward, and those will actually, as we go into the next thing, they will empower you. They will open you up to possibilities and all these beautiful things. But we have to take responsibility for what happened. But again, understanding grace, compassion, and love for yourself. Okay. But also what you want to do is when you want to look back at your last year in your career, you also want to celebrate the wins. Because what we often do is we go out of balance. So we look at all the things we didn't like and we give it all this power and all this like, oh my gosh, I did this and this and this. And then our wins are like this. Like we don't want to acknowledge them. And part of this exercise, half of the exercise is actually going in and celebrating yourself. And again, this could feel quite unfamiliar if you're not used to celebrating yourself. But there's a few tips I want to give you here right off the mark. First of all, it's not just about celebrating accomplishments, achievements, things like KPIs, like those really measurable things. Like maybe you got a new job, maybe you got a raise, maybe you completed a project early. Those are all great wins. And yes, I would encourage you to celebrate those. But here's the other piece that is so critically important. I cannot stress this enough. When you're going back over your year, look at the wins that just made you feel good, even in a moment. Okay, so this could look something like you put up a boundary with your boss for the very first time, and it felt really uncomfortable, and you were scared, you were, uncertain of how it would go. if implementing boundaries is new for you this year and you did it, my word, you have to celebrate the crap out of that. So it's going back and looking at all the little things that probably nobody else is going to celebrate. Like nobody else would know how hard that was for you, or how that made you feel on the inside. That's where the gold is. Like there is so much richness there, because what it's also telling you is what you need more of in your career. So again, to go back to that boundaries, if it felt really scary for you, but you did it anyway, you probably need more boundaries, right? So celebrate it, but also glean the wisdom from that one as well. We want to bring that into 2024. So it's looking back at your wins, but then digging deeper and going, why was it a win for me? Like, why did it feel good? Why am I celebrating this? And then acknowledging those wins. So Sonia?
Oh my gosh, I just love everything you brought. I think the thing there's a couple things that are standing out for me. One is, and this is something, it's kind of like this mantra that I love to, remind my clients of, which is we don't achieve fulfilled, we feel fulfilled. And if we want fulfilling work, we have to start being willing to give at least a little bit more, if not as much of our energy, attention, and availability to how we feel, to legitimize to even be willing to discover how is that even powerful? Because feelings in our work life, for many of us, we've been brainwashed to believe it's a liability, when actually your power rides on the current of your emotions. And as we develop this empowered relationship with our emotions, we learn how to harness the power of an awareness of our feelings. That's where we start to dissolve our upper limits. And so what you just shared about, it isn't just about the KPIs and the tangible outcomes. It's really about illuminating and becoming more aware of what felt good. Because if we want to manifest a better reality, the truth is that our consciousness, our inner world is where our power begins. And then everything in the outer world is a byproduct of that. So this is what makes this peace, the peace that we've been talking about, to wrap up the year with peace, is bringing the neutrality, a change in your feeling state, and then receiving what you become aware of with curiosity. Just that shift from judgment and shame to curiosity, compassion, and grace is utterly life altering. And so I just love how you framed this. And I just wanted to put a spotlight on truly the power of this is, well, we're actually going to talk about that. It's really, this is the springboard for starting to get more in touch with your power. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I just actually, before we go into claiming your power, just wanted to Brian respond. He said, I experienced a significant emotional event, which pushed me to improve my emotional and physical health. And isn't that the way? And thank you so much for sharing that, Brian. Isn't that so much the way? It's like when we reach that almost proverbial rock bottom, and this is the beauty of kind of being that place, all of a sudden you open, you're just like, it's like a crack and light comes in. That's how I see it all the time. I know my most profound changes always come usually when I'm at the depths of something I'm not enjoying. Like usually the way it goes, right? Because we are more open, right? We are more open. So thank you for sharing that, Brian. And thank you so much, Sonia, because yeah, you're right. That pivots right into the next one. It's right about claiming your power. And I love this conversation around claiming your power, because this is where your power is. Where your power is actually feeling good. Like it's about actually feeling good. Now think about it. If you really think about it, when are you more confident? Were you more bold? Where do you take more quote unquote risks or leave your comfort zone? When you feel good. It's almost becoming a bit of a rebellion, I think, in what we've been through the last few years in this planet and what people are going through in their careers, to actually feel good, because there's so much crap going on in this external world. There's a lot going on right now. And yes, if we all watch the news and the economy and everything, you know what? We could all be quite down and depressed if we allow it to seep into us, right? The biggest rebellion you can do right now is actually to feel good. to actually tap into your self-worth, to tap into your value. And, so when you're looking back across this last year, it really is about, like I said, going from that neutral place on the things you don't love, being curious, but also celebrating the wins. So when you get to this place right now, you're like, I'm feeling pretty good about the year. I've got my wins, I've got the things I really rocked. But also, you know what? Even though I may have not done some things I loved, I freaking learned some things. And to come from this place of it was all good, whether it didn't go my way in the external or not. And that place of actually feeling really good is what we want to bring into this next year. Because this next year is going to be, we're going to talk about it next week. We'll be talking about 2024 next week, but it's a very different year. It's going to be a very different year energetically. I know that for sure. And so if we can start the year and carry this through the year of actually feeling good, this is actually how you'll start to make change. I want to give you a practice that I do. I'm going to give it to you right now in this area right here about wins. Because I talked about wins in that first key, but I want to talk about wins you can do right now today. Something that I started doing probably 15 years ago, to be honest with you. Because celebrating your wins might feel a little bit foreign to you. And a lot of our power also, when we talk about actually feeling good, we feel good when we play. Okay? We feel good when we play. Like Sonia and I, in doing these lives, we keep saying to each other, we're having fun. I don't know if you can tell we're having fun, but we're legitimately having fun. And that's where our power comes, for many of us, is actually feeling good, but also playing, bringing out that inner child. Because like I said, the last number of years, super serious, super stressful. Okay, we can all agree on that. But here's an exercise you can do when it comes to the wins to actually tap into that feeling good and that playful energy to bring you back into your power. Start celebrating ridiculous wins. So, like really ridiculous ones. Again, I started doing this 15 years ago. So it could be something like, so you're at work and you showed up at a meeting on time. So it's turning to a coworker. And I literally would do this. I would literally do this. I'd be like, notice I showed up on time. I just want you to celebrate me for a moment here. I showed up on time. Like, just be ridiculous. Like, when I say that, I really mean it, because what it does takes the edge off. It takes all this heaviness away, and that's when we stand in our power. So think of ways you can celebrate ridiculous wins. I would do this with my kids. I never understood at the time why I was doing this. Now looking back, I see the power. But I would do ridiculous things like, a parallel parked. I'd be like, kids, did you see how straight, like one shot in, I did that? And we would just be ridiculous with it. And it kind of almost helps us get over ourselves, get over ourselves, because then we start to have new possibilities, like we'll talk about next. But being able to play and just not take life so seriously, take ourselves so seriously, that can really, really, really help us tap into that power. And I'd love to hear from any of you who are watching, like, is that something you do? Like, that inner child can be sometimes hard to reach. Is that something you could do? And how does that feel when I mention that? So go ahead, Sonia. I'm curious to hear what you think about that idea.
Yeah. Well, my whole habitat and everything I coach from is very much the world of consciousness. Like, I live underwater and everybody else is land faring and stuff like that. So when I hear, like, I totally love and know the power of protecting your joy, connecting with the innocence of your inner child. If only people understood how incredibly powerful that is, because again, your consciousness creates your reality. So when we're operating from feeling good, from our inner child, from play, that energy of I'm having fun, life just rises up to meet you, and it gives you more things that feel good and fun. So the other thing I want to say about the innocence is, when you feel good, enjoy it, because where your attention goes, the energy flows. And when you feel bad, our opportunity is also to soothe the inner child. So I talk about, feel good, savor it, like build it up for all it's worth, celebrate. And if you feel bad, soothe it with that love and compassion, as opposed to what most of us do is either we unconsciously beat ourselves up, or we actually think that we take these challenges on as flaws or something's our fault. So we actually try to fix ourselves. And as long as we're fixing ourselves, that saying about what you resist persists. When you're fixing yourself, when you're beating yourself up, you're actually resisting all of these disempowering feelings. But when we soothe them, then those feelings can pass on through. And that's such an important aspect of really claiming our power. It's about changing our relationship to ourselves, and then that becomes a ripple effect. And it's always with that love and care for the inner child. I always say, and I remember when this light bulb went on for me, is I talk to these really high-powered clients all day long, right? And they work really hard, and but they're hitting these obstacles. And I always say that you're only as powerful as your inner child feels safe. So you have to, if you're willing to discover how to feel safe with whatever you're feeling and not resist that, that really lets the inner child, you can't play if you don't feel safe. So that's what lets that inner child free to play and to relate to anything that was challenging about last year in a much more empowering way.
Oh, I love that. And it's, I think what you said is so important. It's when we resist something, it continues. And we resist all these things because we judge them. And that's where there's just so many people stuck right now, and they're stuck in a loop. And you're right, soothing them, having that grace, having that compassion, seeing it, but from a different experience. That's how they keep moving, because we don't want to sit in those negative emotions. And that's what disempowers us, is we get a negative emotion, and because we resist it, we end up sitting and stewing in it. And that can go on literally for years, right? Yeah. Just see it, love it, nurture it. Don't try to, like you said, don't try to fix it. We're so busy trying to fix ourselves. But in saying we're fixing us, it's saying there's something wrong with us.
Right.
Really, that's the underlying message you're telling yourself, is there's something wrong with you. And that's an awful message. But, we've all done it. I know I've done it. I had to teach this. I've had to learn it. I know that's the same for you, right?
Right.
Like Sonia and I have talked, and I know our histories are they're different in many ways, but they're similar in many ways, in that we both had to learn how to really step into our power, because we were not brought up. We were absolutely, I come from a very, very long lineage of disempowered women. Like I'm the cycle breaker. Like I would say, I'm the generational cycle breaker in all of this change for my daughters as well, right? We've all, most of us have done this. But being able to nurture yourself and just saying, you know what, I'm actually perfect as I am. Mm-hmm. Like I'm exactly who I need to be in this moment of now. God didn't create, whether you believe God, universe, whatever. I wasn't created by mistake. Like there's got to be some perfection in that, right? So I love that.
Wonderful. Well, should I go on to claiming possibilities? Okay, awesome. So I just love the build up to this. So we've talked about how to connect with your peace. We've talked about how to claim your power. And what this has all done, what these two pieces do, is it starts to create space. This is where possibilities become available to us. So I always like to say space, when you understand how to have a relationship with space and become conscious of the power of space, everything happens, everything in our lives happen in a space. So what is space? What does that mean? Our space, there's many spaces. There's the space, there's outer world spaces, like your workspace, your relationships are space, your home is a space. And we're talking about the inner world space of your awareness. This is why we offer awareness practices, because when you start to expand your awareness, elevate your awareness, because your consciousness creates, all it takes, this is why reframes and mindset shifts are so powerful. When you start looking at something differently, you start attracting different realities, right? So the space of our awareness it's not about how do I receive, it's what am I receiving right now? Because we are receiving all day long. And if we're not aware of what we're receiving, that which we're receiving is in the space that's what we're creating. So if we go into 2024 and we haven't really looked at what's in the space of our awareness, the stuff that we're resisting, the things that we're challenged with, these winds that are buried, then we're going to just drag that, like we're going to create that moving into 2024. But when we receive it, when we allow it to be here, when we have compassion and grace and we're not resisting, it's almost like these leaves have been blowing in the wind in the space of our awareness, and they can finally just settle. And then there's this space, and space is the invitation. You don't have to do anything else to invite new possibilities. Now space is the invitation. And here's how I can prove it to you. All right. Think about a kitchen counter. You've just cleared off all the junk, nice space, 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 space. How long does it take before that counter is filled up with keys and mail and bags and junk, right? You've just cleared out your garden and you got rid of the cat poop and the rocks and the weeds and the sticks that the wind blew in. And now you've got this nice clear garden so that the flowers can sprout. How long does it take before that garden starts popping up weeds and bringing in more cats and it just gets filled up? You've just cleaned out a closet. Nice purge, took everything to donate and give away, and your nice, clean, wonderful closet. How long does it take before you start shoving things, shoving things, shoving things? Whenever there's space, it's the invitation for something new. So our possibilities expand when we clear the space intentionally, which is what we're talking about today. Space is the invitation. And because you're being compassionate with anything that's challenging, that allows your inner child and possibilities that are always there. Remember, they're always there. And this is another thing I really want to offer in alignment with the innocence piece, which is you already are all that you seek to be, do, and have. There's nothing to fix. You already are this. But just because we are this doesn't mean we always feel this. And in order to start feeling the truth of who we are, we have to make space by it, by accepting what's been here so it can settle. And that space invites the higher possibilities of who we are. So if you do step one and you do step two, you automatically become an invitation for claiming your possibilities, which we're going to build on in the next episode for 2024. So Andrea, anything you want to add to that?
So good, so good. And I love that space. And when I look back on my, life over the last 15 years, 100%, it is about clearing space. It really is. However, what we've been, I always talk, part of what I do with my work is I try to change. I don't try to change. What I do is introduce like how we've been taught. So how we've been conditioned, how we've been kind of programmed, because our brains are actually programmed. It's actually how the brain works. So it's not like it's a bad thing that we're programmed. However, what happens is we incorporate a program and then we keep running on it over and over until we like reprogram it, right? So when you start to change who you are and you want more fulfillment and more joy, it does require some reprogramming, right? So it's knowing what you've been doing and then knowing, okay, this is the other available option, or these are the options. This is the new way of doing this, which is what we're really doing in these lives. It's like, if what you're doing is not working, we're introducing some new things, right? And really, when you think about it, when you look at our careers, definitely, but society, even in its entirety, really look at it. We really, what's the word? Like, we revere people who are really busy. We revere people who are just like slammed their calendar, like you can't reach them for the next month. Like we revere people who work 12 hours a day or 14 hours a day, and what that's really happening is when you do that is you have no space. Mm-hmm. And so space can feel scary. It's like this void, this emptiness. Now what? It's kind of like this, it really is kind of like a void, right? And so why I'm mentioning this to you is, I'm very familiar with space, and I know, Sonia, you are. It's something, you talk about it a lot, right? But it takes, again, this is one of these things where it takes also practice with being okay with that space. And even we're talking about these exercises today, just to even create the space to do them. Right? So much happens in this space. It's also that being. Right. I know, you talk about being versus doing. We are so in the doing energy on this planet that, take action and constantly do. And yes, we always need to be taking action, of course. However, there's been an imbalance. And so this is this beingness and just being okay with the fact that you might not have all the answers right now. You might not know what possibilities are coming ahead, but that's okay. It's actually really okay. Just be in that place of, I don't maybe know right now. But that's okay too. Like, we don't always have to know the answers. There's an element of trust that needs to come into this, right? I talk about the difference between, like, control is the opposite of trust, right? If you're in control, it's because you don't trust. So there needs to be an element like of just trusting that space. And again, we're going to be talking about 2024. So we'll help you kind of put some framework around, what you want in that space, right? Or what you would desire, what you're intending for that space. But that space is really important, and to start to let go of the need to fill the space right away, to make yourself feel like you're in control or you've got some sort of power in that situation. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. It's so absolutely true. I remember when the circumstances of my life after I have twins and I went through double empty nest. I was a single mom at that time with twins. They both went away to college. I went from 0 to 2 kids in 60 seconds when they were born, and then from 2 to 0 like that. And I had so much space, and I, running my own business. And I remember and I literally was calling friends and trusted advisors. I'm like, I hate all this space. I don't know what to do with myself. It was really uncomfortable. And, but it's because I couldn't fill it up. I moved to a new place. I didn't have anything to fill it up, not taking care of my kids, not busyness. I was forced to face it. And that ended up being such an incredible gift. That's where the magic came. That's where the next up level with my career happened. I'm so glad you said that. So this is where the possibilities are. Would love to hear in the chat any ahas or thoughts about space for you. Like, do you have space? Do you not have space? Anything you want to share about that, because this is really where the new possibilities come. And when you have a new way of relating to space and seeing the value of it and what to do instead of filling it up, which is these being skills, as we're going to talk more about in the next episode, you're the invitation, and life starts showing you things and opportunities. So thank you for illuminating that, because that's so important. So with that, we're going to start moving into your next steps, so that we've talked about why this is important, what to do, and now we're going to talk about how to do it. And we're going to be offering an aligned action and an awareness practice that you can start practicing right away. So you can build on this and feel guided in it. So I'm actually going to offer the aligned action first, and that is set aside some personal time and space. And like Andrea said, it doesn't have to be a big deal or a lot. Just get a cup of coffee and tea, say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to pull out my journal. Grab a journal, set aside time and space. And I invite you to really minimize the distractions so that you can really be with yourself. Okay. And then we're providing some prompts that you can start writing about. And there's no right way to do it. Just stream of consciousness, let it flow. Have fun, let it be playful, soothe yourself if some discomfort comes just by saying, it's okay. It's okay. There's opportunities to learn from this. I'm just going to be curious. I'm going to be gentle with myself, and I'm going to be curious. So here are the 5 prompts. And if you'd like to join our Telegram group, we're going to post them there. You can hit pause on the replay, write them down. But we can have the conversation continue in the Telegram group with these prompts. So prompt number 1 is, what challenges or struggles am I ready to feel complete with? Prompt number 2, what wisdom did I gain from those experiences? Number 3, what power do I have to make different choices based on what I've learned? Number 4, what successes do I want to celebrate, whether they're micro successes or big ones, and not just physical world outcomes, but things that felt good? And number 5, what possibilities am I ready to explore in the new year? So just stream of consciousness, do what feels good, stop when you feel complete. And that's the aligned action. And then that will be kind of a springboard for some new awarenesses. So the awareness practice then is based on your responses to the prompts, create some willingness affirmations. And we talked about that in the last episode. Willingness affirmations are the most powerful type of affirmation because you're in alignment with them. You can always find something that you're willing to be, do, believe, experience. Find that willingness that's honest and authentic to you instead of trying to convince yourself of something you don't believe in, which is how some affirmations can go. And then your emotions don't match your thinking mind, and then that's more resistance. So willingness statements. Once you've created them, and I'm going to give you some examples, say them as often as you like, especially if and when you're feeling discouraged. So here's a couple examples just to prime the pump. I am willing to notice when I'm holding back and speak up anyway. I am willing to treat myself with grace and compassion. I'm willing to believe it's possible to have a more fulfilling work life, even if I don't know how. So that is the aligned action and the awareness practice. We invite you to play with it. Please throw anything in the chat if you have any questions about this, or even just this assignment is, giving you some new ideas or insights about what you can play with next. Andrea, anything you want to add to flesh out those next steps?
Those were so good, honestly. I love those. Sonia came up with those, and I love those. The one thing I will add is there's really power in writing these down. There's power in saying them out loud. I don't think we've fully acknowledged, like, having the thoughts go in your mind is great. However, when you can speak it out loud, when you can write it, when you can share it with somebody you trust. And again, that's why we've created this Telegram group, because every time we do that, we begin to more fully embody it, because it's great. Like I said, up here is one thing, but to then actually bring it into your physical reality and to actually embody it, the more times you say it, the more times you share it, like I said, in a safe space, write it down. Every time you do that, it continues to really ground that into who you are. And that's when we really start to shift and change our outer reality, right? Because we start to feel differently on the inside. So I would just encourage that as much as possible, just to continue with that. Just, sharing it and saying it as much as it feels good for you. So, yeah.
Wonderful.
Awesome. So that is it for today. So again, actually, I will share the Telegram group in the comments below after we get off this call today. So next week, to use Sonia's words, we've primed the pump. So, you've got a week to do this work, and we're really hoping that you do embrace the exercises and really spend that time to create that time and space for yourself, because next week we are going to dive into 2024. And, we really want you to kick it off with insight, imagination, and really to create what you want next year. And this is being about being really, really intentional. So spending that time, and it's not about New Year's resolutions, although they're powerful as well, because when everybody is taking actions on their inspired dreams, it actually creates an energy, which you want to pick up on. So from an energetic perspective, it's actually good to take action in January, but it's really about being intentional and having the insights and the imagination. So join us next week. We're going to share, like always, tips. We'll have exercises, as well as the awareness exercises, and any suggestions you have. So if you're like, you know what, I would love to learn about this, or this is a challenge I'm having, please message either Sonia or myself. Again, our intention really is to shed light, to share what we have learned and everything we are doing in the work we do to help you move forward. So you're not settling. So you're not stuck in places that you don't want to be. So, and just remember, when you, as you show up for yourself, the next steps will show up for you. So until next week.
Bye-bye.